compared to, let's go back to February last year and how much better you might feel right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's always kind of a gauge period in spring training. You're putting pants on for the first time, you're getting off the dirt sometimes for the first time, and getting outside and warmer weather, so things are moving faster and you kind of work through that process, but so far so good.
What were you working on specifically this offseason? I know there was a lot of talk during the season about velo and things like that. What were you working on?
Yeah, I think the focus for me was mostly on just optimal movement, mechanics. Fastball shape is a big one, which is a byproduct of that. So trying to get some range of motion and certain things into a spot where I can move the way that I need to move to produce the shapes that I need to. I think velo, it's something that I've had the ability to throw very hard, so I'm not necessarily tracking it in the off season because there's just not that much high intensity throwing. I think there's a cost for that. So, and some guys are different, and that's something they're working on. For me, it was more just a lot of reps at lower intensity and drills and things to try to encourage that optimal movement pattern.
When you look back to last year, what do you take away as a team that you feel like should be a focal point going into this season in hopes that you guys can kind of get to that postseason team you guys used to be?
Yeah, I think there were a lot of stretches where it felt like we're starting to move upward and find a groove, and just couldn't capture that momentum. And I think in hindsight, a lot of that was hoping things were improving. Collectively and certainly individually for myself. So rather than kind of taking ownership sometimes and really digging deep to find out, what's trending in what direction, good and bad, and you can kind of steer the ship a little bit more that way when you kind of get into the details a little bit sometimes. And there's so many moving parts to a team. Pitching, offense, it's just multifaceted to say the least. So there's a lot of holes you're trying to plug at any given moment, and we certainly had our fair share of them last year, but I think just controlling what we can control at any given moment is going to give us the best chance.
What was your reaction to Schwelly and his injury and now being out for a significant time, and how that kind of shifts your view of this rotation? I mean, still strong, but obviously opportunities for some of the younger guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't say enough how bad I feel for him. He's done everything that's been asked of him. Every day for a while now, and just didn't improve the way that we'd hoped it would, and that's unfortunately the reality sometimes. And he's still confident and has the work ethic, and I don't have any doubts that won't stay the same. And it sounds like this next period there's some new plans and stuff that'll be good, hopefully, to get him back to where he is. I think he's arguably the best pitcher in baseball when he's at his best on the mound. So certainly going to miss his presence on the field, but the guy that he is, he's always around. So
we've talked about the pitch clock before. Now we've got automatic umps as well. So what are your thoughts as a pitcher dealing with that and having the challenge system and all that?
Yeah, it's new. I experienced it a little bit in some rehab starts last year. I think we overestimated the amount of strategy that would go into the pitch clock and some other things like step off limits and that kind of stuff evolves naturally. You got to play with it for a little bit to kind of figure it out, and some teams are going to be better at that than others. And I think ultimately it's the goal is the same for me. I gotta make the hit or miss. So I gotta compete in the strike zone. So you got to get the guys to swing. To do that, you got to challenge them, and what happens after that, I can't really influence. So it'll be interesting. I think, like I said, in those rehab starts, I think I was successful all of the times I challenged, but it's definitely going to be a learning curve for a lot of guys.
I was going to say, does it feel different when it's kind of like a robot or automatic system versus a human being like making it and challenging it and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I remember playing in the alt site in 2020 where we didn't have umpires sometimes, and so the entire zone was based off of the Hawkeye or the TrackMan, so totally automated. And there were definitely pitches that everybody in the field knows are going to be called strikes, but visually they don't look like they should be strikes, and I think that those are always going to be the minority of outcomes, but that it only takes one to really change the tide of a game. So it's going to have its moments where it's going to cause controversy, and other than that, I think it's just going to kind of become part of the game like everything else has.
You would have loved to make postseason, obviously, but for this team to have, I guess, even more time this offseason to kind of get right, for you to be able to have some extra time to get right, do you think it can be seen as an advantage now that you guys actually can have a real full reset heading into a year?
Yeah, I think obviously the reality of that set in earlier last year than obviously it has in my career here, but with that there's some optimism and some excitement with the opportunity you're given to really sit down and plan out the off season and structure things out, have some conversations with people and really get a good plan. And I was doing that before the season was over last year, just trying to set up the groundwork to have good work and make the changes I wanted to make coming into this year. And I think you're kind of forced to step back and really evaluate yourself. And I feel like everybody's come in with a lot of optimism, and there's been some changes, obviously, to the coaching staff that kind of feel like we've cleaned the slate from last year, and I think that everybody's got that positivity, it seems like, so far.
With the Braves moving on from Cranny, what is your impression of Hefner, and what did you know about him, and maybe what's the biggest difference between them as well?
Yeah, I mean, Cranny was all I'd had in my big league career, so it's just very grateful for him, and just unbelievable person, and just the conversations and the banter and the guy that he was, just being around him every day is just that's going to be missed for sure. So, but very excited for the new staff, and Hefner's been fantastic. So is JP. Very intelligent guys, and I've heard nothing but good things from other guys around the league that have been with them. So already enjoyed my time working with them, and it's it's exciting to have those guys around.
What's your reaction with Nacho learning to be a catcher, and what have your conversations been like with him about it?
Yeah, Drake told me that in the fall, and I was like, "Are we talking about the same guy?" But yeah, he's fired up about it. He's excited. I think when the team comes to you and asks you to do something like that, I hope that he received it as a message of confidence in him. To think that he can do that successfully, and that's obviously a big challenge. Mm-hmm. So they clearly have some belief in him and want him to be versatile enough that there's a place for him on the field. So I know he's taken that opportunity that way, and he's working pretty hard at it. So I'm interested to throw to him for the first time. Hopefully I get that chance.
How would you define a successful spring training for you?
For me personally?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be on the opening day roster, break with the team. That'd be nice. But I think I'm starting to get older here, so been through these a little bit now, and I think you got to keep in perspective just how long of a season it is, and you can't be where you want to be at the end of the season if you're not, in a position to grow leaving spring training. So. No outing in spring training or day or whatever, no throw is going to make or break the season. I think you've got to keep a slow build and in mind. Learn from what things took more work in previous years. Spend some more time on those, and just keep track of the benchmarks of success throughout the season and where those are at. Don't let anything get too off the tracks.
You're not a guy that's new to expectations, but I'm curious how you evaluate Drake and the rookie year he had, and just the expectations that people might put on him going into this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's never going to be discouraged by any outside noise or any inside noise relay. He's one of the most positive people I've ever met. To be around him is just, it brightens your day, really. I mean, he's so curious and intelligent, and just has positivity all the time. He's very confident in himself as a result. He never seems like he has a bad day, so win or lose. And I think he's benefited from having guys like Sean around, and Sandy Leone and some of these veteran guys that have kind of helped expedite that learning curve, and his work ethic's so good that there aren't many challenges that hold him down for very long. So I expect good things.
You said that you're not working high intensity right now, but are there some metrics or some visuals or something that encourages you right now?
Yeah, I mean the fastball shape, keep saying it, but that's the big one. I think independent of velocity, there's nothing that matters more than being able to throw something in the strike zone and get the ball back in your hand more often. So, that was the one thing I felt that never really improved last year, despite all my efforts, and set me up with a lot of challenges on any given day. So, so far that's been really good, and worked really hard on it this off seasons with a lot of people. So that's encouraging for that to pay off so far. But it's got to continue, and still have to be able to throw strikes and execute off speed. And I like where things are trending. And yeah, like you said, it's not necessarily about where I am tomorrow. It's where we are when we break, and then hopefully as we're getting ready for the postseason.
When healthy, how good can this rotation be?
Yeah, I mean, really good. I think there's a lot of depth in the organization right now. I mean, this room is full of guys that have really good arms and really good heads on their shoulders, and a lot of them have pretty decent big league experience at this point. And everybody's ceiling's very high, and they believe that, which is the most important thing. And everybody here thinks that they can be a frontline guy, and wants the ball on a win or go home game. So the mentality is ultimately what's going to determine where we go, and how we weather storms and difficulties throughout the season, and I feel good about where that's at.
Talking about that mentality, I remember a couple years ago going into the season, you said it's World Series or bust. And obviously a lot has happened since then. Guys didn't make the playoffs, but how does that approach change going into after a season like that?
Yeah, I don't think that ever changes. I mean, if you're not trying to win the World Series, I mean, what would we be doing? I don't think any team is coming into this year with a goal of finishing third place in their division. I would hope not. Somebody's going to, but yeah, I mean that's the ultimate goal. That doesn't mean that there aren't benchmarks along the way that need to be achieved, need to be met. You have to have something you're working towards, and if you can't say it out loud, then I don't think you really believe it. So if you want your actions to emulate that desire, you have to be able to speak it. But I don't think it's radical to say that that's our ultimate goal. So, but like I said, we're a long ways away from it, so there's a lot of small things that need to be achieved, in the near future.
There's someone with good hair and facial hair. And what do you think about Austin Riley in the clubhouse, like the competition now?
A competition with Austin on facial hair? Oh yeah, when I saw him a couple weeks ago, and it caught me off guard a little bit, but I like it. Change it up, I'm sure he's getting the support at home. He must, because he's been growing it out for a while. So that's, in my experience, that's what will sway the facial hair and hair decisions.